Hey guys, and welcome to another patch notes breakdown. This time around, whoa, this is very high up. This time around, it's going to be the world's patch, if I remember correctly, patch 8.19. And now, obviously, that means that they have some champions that they need to fix, that they want to have this game as well-rounded as possible, as this is the patch where worlds will be played on, so you don't really have um, any room for mistakes and screw ups and stuff like that. You want to make sure that this is as good as it comes. So, champions. Okay, so first up we have Darius, who is getting buffed. W base damage increased, E armor pin increased. Okay, so it makes sense to buff the likes of Darius and Fiora. I can see that she's getting buffed too, because it's been very team fight oriented for a long time now. Where once you hit those 20-minute marks, the team that are ahead, the team that is ahead, will just hit on the Baron until it gets that Baron. It's been that way for a long time, and because of that, tanks have been the preferred top laner, because it means that then you have a safe top laner and you're able to actually have an impact in the game, even though you fall behind, which someone has to do. So it makes sense to buff up Darius and the likes of Fiora. Is it a huge buff? No, not really. It's 10% on the side of Crippling Strike and 5% on the side of Apprehend. And for Fiora, she's getting buffed in terms of healing from passive procs. So these two, it's not like a huge buff. It's not like it's going to be not possible to pick tanks anymore. But it's just going to be much more about whether or not you want to play that. I think we would call it then a medium risk, high reward situation, right? Because either you fall behind early on against this Bruiser, or you have a super good team fight where the Bruisers will be forced to either go for the backline, which they can't because you're up against a tank and it's full-blown team fight comp, or they will have to split push and possibly lose more objectives because they aren't as fast in terms of split pushing. So Darius and Fiora will be picks that are viable in terms of playing for the lane, but they're not going to be as good in team fights. So I like the idea that you buff up these early game champions. And I can see the Kha'Zix is also something we have to talk about. So I like the idea that you're buffing up these early game champions. But we'll have to wait and see how it turns out. If it turns out for the greater good. Kha'Zix, passive damage buff. Sorry, passive damage buffed. W slow increased. Again, it's all about buffing up these early game champions. So if you take her Kha'Zix with Elise, W and E cooldown decreased in Spider Form. Okay, so that's skittering, Frenzy, and Repel. Okay, so the thing about these two guys are that they're super good in the early game, and they work really well with the likes of a Fiora or Darius. For Kha'Zix's mother, he's much stronger than Elise because he's able to really utilize the new runes, whereas someone like Elise isn't exactly in a good spot because she got screwed over pretty hard by the runes. Like, she got attack speed and ability power off of the runes. She does not get that anymore, and that means that she is not as good in terms of early game damage anymore, and you need to get a compensation from that before she can really become a jungler that you want to pick. Like, it's not like you can't play her early on, but her damage just isn't as high as the likes of a Rengar or a Kha'Zix or even a Lee Sin for that matter. So Elise getting buffed in this way is not exactly what you want. You don't want lower cooldowns, you want more damage and more attack speed. And for Kha'Zix, I think this is definitely going to help him more, because now isolated targets will just take so much more damage and be slowed much more, from 80 to 90% slow, and dot 2% more damage, which is a hell of a lot if you're an isolated target. So I think someone like Kha'Zix will definitely jump up in terms of priority for the early game junglers, but at least I don't think she will. Jarvan, passive cooldown decreased. Yeah, so that's also something in terms of buffing these early game junglers. Jarvan is like a hybrid between being a tank and a booster. You can go for both, and you can always go for like these hybrid builds as well. I like that you're then buffing the martial cadence so that you can proc that more easily and more often, as that will make it so that you can deal more damage to your enemies, at least in the early game. So he'll join like the ranks of an Elise and a Kha'Zix. I don't think he'll be as good as Kha'Zix. So the thing about those two guys are that I think that Kha'Zix will be the better early game skirmish jungler. I think Jarvan will be someone you pick for the engage, because you're not going to pick him to have these early game kills come in. You're going to be picking him for his engage, or his engage in terms of his flag and drag, or his cataclysm. I think it's called, yeah, cataclysm. His arena, right? So that's what you're going to be picking Jarvan for. Also in top lane, of course, his passive will be much easier to use, and thus making him a better booster up there. But if we're talking about jungle, he's going to be picked primarily on the fact that he can engage much easier than some of the other junglers that you have in the current matchup. In the current meta, sorry. Nunu envelop, AP scaling on Q's, heal increased, E AP ratio increased. I haven't seen a lot of Nunu. Nunu envelop. I have to admit, I've heard that he's super chunky and probably also full of spaghetti codes. That's what I've heard. So I can't really say a lot about Nunu. I just don't, considering that he's someone you want to use as a level 6 engager, or even he's super good at engaging prior to level 6. I do like that they're giving him a bit more damage, but I can't say for sure whether or not he needs that damage, because I haven't seen too much of him. I don't think, maybe we could be able to look up his win rate, I suppose. So if you look at Nunu here, right? So Nunu and Willop. There we go. Nunu and Willop. Okay, so have a look at Nunu and Willop. Okay, so their win rate currently sits at 46.74%, being the 37th most picked jungler in the game. I wonder who the most picked jungler are. But anyways, that's like a very normal win rate. So I don't think that he needs more buffs, and like his win rate will never be around 50%, I think, because solo queue is not about having a CC jungler. It's all about having these early game junglers. Do you like the buffs then? Yeah, I think it's fine. Will he be picked in competitive? I could imagine he would. Like, he's an interesting champion. I think someone like Broxah would love to play that guy, because of his ability to use a lot of CC and just control the team fights and help his team a lot. So I could imagine that he would be picked a lot more, but I can't say for sure. But the E-AP ratio increase will definitely help, and this will also definitely help a lot, at least in terms of his early game and his clear speed. Janna, passive movement speed to damage conversion increased. Okay, so I think the problem also is that down in the bottom side, it's a lot about having either engaged supports or you're having mage supports. Janna is really neither. She's not really a mage because she's not going to be poking you a lot like a Morgana, or like a Rakan would. And she's not going to be engaging like a Leona or Braum, Alistar, Fresh would. Um, so will this help? A bit, I guess. It's not going to make her. It's not going to make her like jump up in priority. I would imagine she's going to be okay against if you're going up against very early game comps because of her disengage. But I don't think she'll be that much more interesting. And considering that you don't have the likes of a Caitlyn down the bottom side or Sivir, you're much more about having the Kaisers now. The Kaisers, the viruses, the Jins. That's much more what you want to see down in the bottom side. I think that it's going to be much more about looking out for perhaps a Saya or an Ezreal or Sivir, but Saya will always want Rakan. Ezreal and Janna will just be giving out the bottom side, which a lot of teams they don't want, and Sivir and Janna is also a lot about just giving out the bottom side and playing for the lanes, which is not exactly how you play the current League of Legends game. So I don't see her being picked very often. I do see her perhaps jumping up in priority if you want a safe support, but she'll have to fight that spot. So she'll have to fight for that spot against Lulu, who is also super strong and I think brings more to the table because of her attack speed buffs. Fresh. Q mana cost and early cooldown decreased. I like this. I think Fresh should always be a possible champion that you can play as a support. I think that he can always bring something extra to the table. And I like that you're now giving him an extra incentive to actually being played. You have the Alistar and Braum already down the bottom side. Pyke to some extent too. And I like that Fresh can join that, and I think that is always what should be the possibility, because Fresh simply just brings so much more to the team in terms of engages and being able to play safe at the same time. So I'm happy to see this, and I think he should always be part of the support pool, at least when you're talking in terms of engage supports. Pyke, early ult damage increased. I think Pyke is already super strong. I don't think he needed to be buffed at all. So when does this break? When does it break? So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2. Breaks even at level 11. Okay, I'm an idiot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Sorry, so at 11 you get 519. Okay. Sorry, 90. Okay. It isn't a huge buff. It's like, what, 40, and then it starts at like 50, then 40, then 30, 20, and then just continues that way. Okay, I'm not convinced that Pyke needed buffs in terms of his ult. I think that was already fine. Will it make him stronger? Yes. I think he was already a super strong support. Possibly my favorite support because of his abilities to roam around the map and have an impact. Did he need the buffs? No. Will it make him stronger for Worlds? Yes. Will Hylissang become stronger? Hell yeah, I'm a Fnatic fan, so I don't mind. Well, let's wait and see how it goes, because it's a weird buff in my opinion, but we'll have to wait and see how it goes, because the right balance team could be seeing something that I'm not seeing. Tahm Kench, base health points down, health point per level up. I don't know. I think it's the same with Braum. I like having tanky supports being sturdy in the early game, and I don't like you taking so much health away from them. Will it slaughter them? No. Will it make their laning phase harder? Yes. Did they have a hard laning phase already? Depending on matchups. So I think that if you had given him perhaps 560, then that would have been better. Then you'd only taken away 60. Right here, you've taken away what, like 70. So I don't think you. I think it should have been that was not right. My math is wrong. Or the thing that I like having support be fairly sturdy, and I don't think this is the way to go around it. Health growth at least makes up for it, compensates a little bit for it, but it's not a lot. And he will still get tanky, but I just like him being tanky from the start, alongside the Braum. I think that's what Alistar, Braum, Leona, Tahm Kench should be all about. But will make his laning phase and like his overall strength of the game a little bit more well-rounded, so that people have a harder time against that guy. Kog'Maw, base movement speed increased, or range increased. Yeah, I think it's fine. It's fine buffs. I'm not sure he'll like exactly jump up in terms of priority for this worlds, because Varus, Jhin, Kai'Sa, Ezreal still are like the top 4. I feel like, and catching a Kog'Maw will be so easy if you can get through the laning phase. And now Janna has been buffed, and Tahm Kench is still a possibility. Same goes with Rakan and Lulu. If you can get through that, then he will still be super good in the mid game, and now he will have more movement speed, so he can stay safer. But it's not something you pick to win the lane. So that's something you have to keep in mind when playing this Kog'Maw. But I could see someone like Uzi go for the Kog'Maw away and just have that impact in the mid game. Items: Liandry's Torment, passive max health points burn increased, AP decreased. Sorry. Okay, so .5 here and .5 here. I think that's fine. 5% AP, that's not a lot. And this is so much more. This is just 1.5. Sorry, 1.5 instead of 1 and 2.5 instead of 2. That's a lot. And I think that it's going to be a much better pick for some of those those mid laners that can use it. The Casio, Syndra to some extent, Annie. I think that's still going to be a viable. I think it's going to be a much more viable choice. That's what I'm trying to say, because of the extra burn. But it's definitely more about poking and wearing people down now instead of bursting them down with their ability power. Champion visual fix updates and sound fix updates. Yeah, not interested really. That's Chromas for all of these. Okay, interesting. Yeah. Well, anyways, look out for Kha'Zix. Look out for Pyke. And Fiora and Darius. I think that's the champions that you have to look out for here at Worlds. In terms of these champions in this patch, I think those are the strongest ones, and definitely ones that we'll have to look for when talking about some of the champions that can jump up in priority in the early game. We still have Graves and Kindred and to some extent Gragas for that early game, Zac too at times. But Kha'Zix can join them up in the top side. Darius and Fiora, they can control the top side alongside the Irelia and the Camille and the Gnar. Sorry, the Gnar, not Gnar. Gnar. And then Pyke obviously is just a much stronger roaming support now. But that is the World's patch. I hope you guys enjoyed this patch notes breakdown. And hopefully you guys will go follow me on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, and you can see what I'm doing with my life and how I'm practicing becoming a better shoutcaster. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching and have a nice day.